thanks for taking the time today to come and join us on our Epic Global Solutions webinar today. We'll be talking today to three colleagues of mine about the safer gambling aspect of the hidden problem for women in safer gambling. I'm aware of the numbers coming, but we do want to get started so we don't waste any of this time. But again, thanks for spending the time and coming with us today. My name's Craig Cornforth. I work as a senior consultant for Epic Global Solutions. I have done for 3 years today, actually. I just noticed before we started today, it's my anniversary of working in this space. I am a gambling addict in recovery, and my role at Epic is to work directly with the industry in sharing my story of lived experience, as well as helping design, deliver, and consult on training. I know the three women that I'm speaking with today very well. I've had the pleasure of working with them extensively over that time period, and we're very, very proud to be here today. We'll go around everyone individually to allow them to introduce themselves rather than me tell you who you're speaking with today. We'll be with you and speaking for around about 25 or 30 minutes today, with hopefully giving you guys out there a chance to ask any questions using the chat on a Q&A facility nearer the end. So as we look on my screen, if we just go around as we're speaking, Megan, if you could let us introduce yourself to us first of all.
Of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Vanderson. I am a consultant for Epic Global Solutions. I've been in the company now for coming up to 6 months, which is completely insane. Before Epic, I was working in a restaurant called Nando's for 4.5 years. I too I'm also a gambling addict in recovery, alongside drug addiction and alcoholism. So you could say that I was very greedy in my time throughout my addictive period. But I'm really grateful to be here. This is such an important topic, and it's so close to my heart. And yeah, that is pretty much it from me.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Megan. Sandra?
Hi, yes. My name is Sandra Naughton. I head up the customer protection contact centres at Entain. I've been in the role now for the past 6 years, in the company since 2014, and this is my 10-year anniversary just gone on Sunday. So I've just spent the last 10 years here, and obviously very happy to be in Entain. But yes, I head up one of the, really, as far as I'm concerned anyway, the most important divisions within the Entain Group, the customer protection team for the UK digital and retail.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sandra. And Taina?
Hi, so I am Taina Grech. I'm a RG QA manager at Kindred. Have been in responsible gambling for almost 7 years now. And we operate in several countries and all over Europe and UK, and we are licensed in many countries. We have over 2,000 employees, and we are very passionate about, of course, in safer gambling, and we have been very vocal about that RG is responsible gambling is part of our company DNA.
Wonderful. Genuinely fantastic to have you all here. I'm aware of the fact that I need to, first of all, try not to talk so much, which is something we've touched upon. We've all got very good relationships in that respect, but also because it is, we as the four of us understand, we work very closely together, and we don't want this to come across as it's something that we've already discussed. Although it is something that we're all extraordinarily passionate about and is required in the market that we do. So in terms of the first question, I think it's fair to say that we see that the industry sort of increasingly sees the value and the marketing in appreciating the growth of the female gambler, if you like. We decided on this question because when I look back to my gambling sort of career, if you like, it was very much a male-dominated environment. From your guys' experience, sort of starting off with the two from the industry, do you see, is there any sort of specific red flags or behaviours that you would think going forward we need to look out for, or that your teams have fed back to you currently? whichever of you would like, rather than me point a finger, whoever would like to come in on that first, please.
Yeah, do you want me to start, Craig?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I think from my perspective, I don't really see that there's much difference anymore with male or female gamblers, to be honest. In modern society now that we have, we've gone away from just the woman at home. It's men at home that are looking after the children. Women look after the children. Women are breadwinners. Men are breadwinners. So I think really, to be quite honest with you, it doesn't make any difference whether you're a male or a female. What makes the difference is what actions we take as a company in order to mitigate the risks to everybody as they come through our products, etc. So I think that's where we really stand, and that's my opinion of it anyway. I don't see any difference between the male or the female. I think maybe more than male, women have probably a tendency not to admit they have a problem. And that is probably the only thing I could say would be the difference.
Interesting. Thanks for that, Sandra. Taina?
Yes, so I mean, I've seen some studies about this, and we do understand that there is, the online presence has increased. So like Sandra said, that there isn't maybe that much differences anymore, but we do see some differences in our detection systems. So the DSM-5, for example, for women, it's quite often that the women tend to play more casino and bingo games, whereas perhaps they tend to go for the non-strategic games more than men. And then there is the demographic risk. I saw a study somewhere that indicated that the older age is more likely to develop problem gambling faster for women than for the men in the same age group. And for the women, the demographic risk is the older age group, whereas for men, it's the young. So those would be the differences that we are aware of.
Interesting. I think I agree with both points in that you can sometimes get a little bit stuck down one corridor, if you like, of trying to just trust data on everything. It's certainly something, the feedback that we get from all of the teams, whether it be Entain, Kindred, or any of the other operators that we deal with, that on its own, data really isn't that useful without the sort of empirical evidence that Sandra's just discussed about that she gets from her teams. But the idea, I suppose, that if we lift the levels for everybody, then we carry everybody along, is certainly something that we all share at Epic and with both of your two companies. Megan, from your perspective, when we talk about the differences in it, you can speak obviously as somebody who not that long ago was one of these customers. I know it's not something we led with, but I'm sure you don't mind sharing in terms of how long it is since your last bet. Was there anything that you noticed, either starting into recovery or in your journey from going from a responsible or a sensible gambler, whichever term that you want used, into the point of harm?
So my last bet would have been on the 3rd of December 2022. So in just a few weeks, I'll be celebrating 2 years, which is even still today, like when I wake up, I still can't believe it. Because 2 years ago, I literally, it was roughly about 2 years ago today that I made the decision to go to rehab. And I can just remember hearing that there was a rehab facility called Gordon Moody, which was designed just for women, like a women's retreat. And it blew my mind, because I genuinely thought I was the only young woman in the world with a gambling problem. I'd never heard of, like people of the likes of Stacey. I mean, obviously my auntie, she's in recovery, but she was quite an older lady. And, during my period of gambling, the social aspect for me was very much, going out on a Friday night, going to bingo. If we won, that would be great, because we'd use that money to go out partying afterwards. And if we lost, it would still be great, because we'd be drunk and we'd be having fun, and when I started to develop, my drug addiction, and my drinking was heavily increasing, I kind of discovered the world of online gambling. And no one really in my circle, like my friendship group or where I lived, no one really done that. apart from the odd football bet, like all the guys in my group would be like placing bets on football or boxing and stuff like that. And so I felt very, very secluded. And for me, it was that sort of, well, maybe I shouldn't talk about it because maybe I'm the one that's a bit abnormal in this situation. Mm-hmm. And so that's why as it kind of progressed, and I think as a woman, my addiction progressed very quickly. I think within the space of 3 months, I become addicted to cocaine, and then another 3 months after that, I think that's when I was in my full-blown addiction to gambling. Maybe, I mean, I'm not too sure about the statistics on that sort of thing, but maybe that's something to do with me, being a woman. Maybe we tend to get addicted to things a bit more quickly rather than men, or maybe it's because I was very ashamed at the time of telling people that I was gambling so heavily. It just wasn't known. It wasn't something that people spoke about much.
I think that's where the change is. Thank you for that, and it's really important. And congratulations! I know everyone's face lit up when you see. It's important. Sandra and I have spoke about this. Following on some other training we do, we firmly believe that younger people will carry the message stronger. I think going forward, particularly young women. It's an area of the business that we're enormously proud to work with the teams that we do in particularly in Kindred and in Entain. We've developed personal and professional relationships with so many brilliant young women and girls, I suppose, if you think, working in there. Again, not to get bogged down in talking about statistics, but I'd be really interested to hear all of your opinions in terms of, Megan has already worked with some of the teams now. Based on the fact that if we look at the evidence, we're being told that the disparity between male and female problem gamblers is getting closer. Whether that's that the female problem gambler is catching up with the male. I personally think that it's more likely that more women are coming forward, thanks to the work that you guys are doing, thanks to seeing the likes of Megan and making it less about stigma and talking about it. Is that reflected in the interactions that you guys have at Entain and in Kindred? Are you speaking to more women? That would be interesting to hear your point of view on that.
Well, I do assume that we are speaking to more women because more women are gambling nowadays, but that's not because I think it's generally online gambling has increased. All online activity has increased in the last few years. So we see an expansion in anything online, which automatically then brings us more female customers. And we see, of course, lots of female customers in our communication as well. We don't focus on gender specifics when it comes to communicating with the customers, but customer-facing individuals are trained to show empathy and understanding, regardless of the gender. The soft skills and emotional intelligence are a big part of our training program. But of course, understanding that there is a level of stigma, it might be easier for a female to open up towards a female, but this is no reason not to apply the same worth and understanding in any communication with our customers.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Taina.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, we do have, based on our own interactions with our customers, I mean, we've seen an increase between 2023 and 2024. In 2023, 15.49% of our customers were female, and in 2024, 16.83 are now female. In comparison to our male customers, I mean, they've gone up as well. So it's like moving together, if that makes sense. So our males in 2023 were 16%, and in 2024, 70% of the interactions we've had have been with our male customers.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's, and I didn't know those figures, Sandra. Obviously, thank you for sharing. It was something deliberately we didn't want to be unauthentic in terms of any of our reactions to it. And my initial one is one of surprise, if I'm honest. I thought it would have jumped up more than that from 2022 to 2023.
No, I mean, Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Craig, we only look at, I mean, bear in mind of the entire UK base, it's only 0.3%
Of course.
of customers that are coming through CPCC team. And by the way, not just CPCC, because we've got our CDD team that's headed up there by Hayley Gardner. She's got a huge team there of 167 people that are reviewing accounts on a daily basis, trying to preempt any problems that we're and mitigating risks. So we have a massive team behind us that are looking at all the customers' accounts on a daily basis. And of that 3%, 2%, just under 0.2% are male and under 0.1% are female.
Amazing. I mean, that should be applauded, right?
Yeah,
There'll be a lot of people, hopefully some on this webinar, who essentially only hear the horror stories. Megan and I, and the rest of our team and the Safer Gambling team, as well as everybody else at Epic who's lived experience, and I'd like to say everybody else who works in this sector who's lived experience, understand we're a very small percentage. The work that we do, that we're privileged and proud to do with all of you guys, is preventative. We don't want it to be when people have the problem. They're the numbers that we talk about, or people who've come forward and who have the problem. We firmly believe, and as someone who lives in recovery from gambling addiction, that we can physically see the work that you guys do and the success, if you like. And I honestly think sometimes it's a little bit. This part of our industry are a little bit scared to celebrate that success, and I think we should be proud of it. The work Absolutely. That your teams do, that, as you say, Hayley and Craig down there, there's many others we could mention in Kindred and many of the other teams that we work at. It does need echoing, the fact that all of that work that we do there is to try and get, as you quite often hear, a little bit further down the river than we do, than waiting for people to have the problem like Megan and I did. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I suppose it's almost a traditional way that we expect that the loudest voices are the people who've had that problem. What would you suggest? I mean, the data certainly suggests that. I think the reason why women tend to go into treatment later and leave earlier and almost never speak about it again. That's something that we hear. Stacey's name was mentioned by Megan a little bit earlier on, who's Stacey works with our foundation, and I know both Entain and Kindred have worked. We've been fortunate enough to use some of Stacey's work in our videos there. It's definitely reflected from that end of it. What do you think could be some barriers that may stop women who are approaching the level of problematic gambling, looking for help, whether that be from an operator or even from a colleague or from a friend? I'll come to you, Megan, if I can, because that's something that you yourself has actually gone through.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the big one for me, it was fear. Like fear of what people would think about me, stigma being a massive part of that. I mean, I was in recovery for drugs and alcohol way before I even admitted that I had a gambling problem. The only two people or the only two places in the world that knew that I gambled was the operator and my bank account. That was it. Right. And as a young woman, drugs and alcohol, they're very much more socially accepted addictions, and there's so much more knowledge and information out there around drugs and alcohol. And so I was really comfortable going into a room and sharing, my name is Megan and I'm a drug addict, or my name's Megan and I'm an alcoholic. But when it comes to the gambling, I was just so full of fear, because that responsibility, you're irresponsible because you've lost all your money and you've spent it all on gambling. That money was meant to go towards driving lessons, university, savings and stuff like that. I think it has so much more of a societal pressure, and where gambling is legal as well, and so many people do it within their means and by having fun. It's almost like I felt a bit like I'm doing this all wrong, so I should hide it and keep it a secret. That kind of makes sense.
No, absolutely makes sense. I mean, it's bound to me, as somebody who's been through and many others, but I've seen both the guys nodding their heads, and I know we've both spoken about it at length there. It almost feels as though and again, in this, I'm reflecting pretty much everyone I've spoken to in recovery about this, that we felt foolish to get addicted to something that's such fun.
Yeah.
You know, because it's something that I'm not ashamed to say that I miss. You know, it was, I did it for a long time, but as I know you did, Megan, and all of my colleagues who are on here. Is that a feeling that, again, I don't expect you to be able to give us particular instances of this, but we're fortunate that we do, you know, with all sorts of different types of consultancy work with both of your companies. Is it from the feedback that you get from your agents, whether it's in the CDD team, whether it's in the, without going into the acronyms, for those who don't know what's going on, the customer due diligence, and into the customer service teams right at the front line, if you like, at the coalface, who are speaking directly to customers? Is there a different type of approach used? I know you said that you don't train different languages, but we're lucky enough to have worked and heard your team sitting next to them live. In terms of the reaction, is there anything that you could share in terms of how men and women differ when they're, if you like, challenged or approached on their gambling?
I think from my perspective and my opinion, I can only say that I've heard a lot of calls, as has Epic in relation to the customers we deal with. And I think to be fair, in both instances, male and female, they're shocked when challenged anyway. So I think that doesn't change whether you're a man or a woman. You're being challenged on something that you don't believe is a problem. So for you, when you get that challenge, it's hard to kind of accept it. We've heard this on recordings where we've had somebody on hold and they've actually, you know, spoken or think to themselves and are saying, how have I come to this point where, you know, they've actually admitted that something is wrong. And I think the training that our teams get and how we, I suppose, deliver that training and develop it and use it on our calls is actually what sets us apart from a lot of other operators. I believe with Entain, you know, we have dedicated a team to customer protection that's within the CS division, but does not do anything to do with CS. It doesn't deal with anything else except customer protection. And I think that has enabled us to really, I suppose, create a top class, well-educated, versed team that are solely dedicated to delivering this type of a function. And therefore, when you speak to our analysts on the phone, you're getting a top quality service. You're getting people who do nothing else except this on a daily basis. And we find that, yes, females, maybe the older group, I believe, tend to prefer to speak with our female analysts. And that's something we like to accommodate where it's possible. But more often than not, everybody on the team has been trained exactly the same. And everybody on the team has empathy. They've got fantastic skills that they've garnered through education with in Gibraltar. We have the university training that they all go through with yourselves. They've got, you know, sessions 3 times a year when they listen to the fantastic stories and they're able to get first-hand knowledge of what it's like, and they're able to utilize that and take that information forward to make a call better and to help somebody who may have a problem.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Sandra. Taina?
I think, Greg, you said very important word in there early on, which is the early intervention. So I think if we normalize communicating about safer gambling, and first of all, normalize safer gambling as being part of the integral part of online gambling in today's world. It is safety first. I think women respond to safety even better than men. Safety is important for us women. So if it's a normal thing that we have safety features in place, and if we have early intervention measures in place, we have an automated early intervention on the first markers of harm, where we approach the player with an automated pop-up, for example. It's a friendly nudge, and hey, these changes have happened, and it's all friendly and welcoming, and this is what we do. and like most of our customers benefit from these tools. So we are normalizing the safety feature. We are normalizing the communication, not waiting for the problem to happen. We want to be proactive rather than the expensive reactive part, and prevent the problem happening from later on, and normalizing the safety from the beginning.
Perfect. Yeah. You won't be surprised to know I agree with you both. That I can have to be honest and accept my frailties, and that I think I can probably pick 3 words out of that before I come to Megan to get her actual experiences of this. Sandra used the word shock. I don't think that's spoken about enough. As bizarre as it sounds, almost got a shock when she mentioned the word shock, because that was how it felt to me when it was too late. And I agree with Taina in terms of that women are better at safety and at reacting to that, which is, I think, if you combine them both together, is probably why, I don't know the figures on this, but in terms of the number of female analysts that you all have, I'll come back to you, Sandra, if I can, in a moment, about the difference for female speaking to male or male speaking to female. But I also think there's almost you could throw a 3rd word in there, would be ego, I think, from a male perspective. The idea of acceptance of a mistake, of accepting how Megan described of us using something wrong, which is essentially how it became for almost every addict that I've ever spoken to, or using it dangerously. But I'm really interested in, and I know this is something that we've spoken about in almost all of our sessions we've done, certainly with both of the companies that were represented today, in that we ask them, we have long enough standing relationships and trust each other enough now that we know we have quite challenging conversations with your teams. They challenge us, and we'll do that back to you. That might surprise some of the people who are on this call who without getting political or pointing fingers, quite often will say that we're told what to do when we come in and do this work with Entain and with Kindred. I can categorically say in 3 years of working, that's never happened once. We have the autonomy to use our lived experience to be able to design every training. Of course, we do it with your guys' excellence and experience. It has to be led that way. Otherwise, it's an echo chamber. It would just be us coming in and telling you what we think. It's one that really, really surprised me, and most members of our team, a few of them are on here, I think, is that when I was asked directly from, I believe, I think it was in an Entain session, would I rather have spoken to a female CS agent, or would I rather have spoken to a male? The difference in opinions in it blew my mind. And when we spoke pre-call, I know this isn't written in stone, but the sort of data we have is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Sandra, that females over 55-ish responded much better to a female agent speaking to them.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Why would that be, do you think?
I think because it's more comfortable. I think it's because they don't feel as intimidated. And I mean, I think in society today, I think really having a problem gambling is probably something that nobody wants to admit, because it is a subject that, is ridiculed as such. So having that kind of an addiction is not something anybody wants to admit. And when you think of people over the age of 55 probably going to bingo, and then they developed over COVID, during COVID, into the online habit of playing online, because they didn't have the option to go to the bingo halls, etc. It's used as a crutch in an awful lot of instances where they're at home, maybe they're on their own, maybe they're getting to the point where they've lost partners, etc. And this is maybe the same with men, by the way, but I'm not saying it isn't. It more so, more so women, I would say. I think that when they get to speak to somebody on the phone, speaking to another female means that they kind of like are feel at home with that conversation, and that's how we want to make it. And they do speak with our male, because we have an even balance of male and females on our team, and they're all trained the same way. So, but I do believe, and what we've got from the information and the data we have, is that sometimes even to ask, can I speak to a person? Can I speak to a woman? Can I speak to a female? So it does benefit us to have a lot of females, but at the end of the day, look, we do the same job, whether you're male or female, but the elderly ladies tends to cope better with a female colleague. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that you guys, I know I'm asking a question I already know the answer to, but that you would allow to happen, that if somebody specifically, a customer asked to speak to someone of a certain gender, and everyone's nodding their head, yeah. Look, it's good business practice before anything else, is it not?
Absolutely.
And I think my belief in this is that hopefully, unlikely to be in my time, I think, sadly, but this is just essentially, we use the term responsible gambling, safer gambling, responsible gaming. My belief is that it's just brilliant customer service from the very beginning. As Taina said, the earlier you can get this in, the better it is. And it's almost a case of knocking those barriers down to make people normalizing is the word that you used a few times in there. Do you have anything to add to that, Taina, in terms of Kindred's aspect of that?
Well, I'd just like to add what was just said. I think that the issue with, particularly with older women, is like if they have reached a stage where their gambling is problematic, and I mean, women, we are as stigmatized for the choices we do. Yeah. So when there's if we had a bad day at work or something and we want to talk about it, but then again, if it's a problem, we are not, we will be judged because we are mothers, we are daughters, and we tend to get stigmatized. So it's very difficult to open up, and that's why it then escalates to a problem, unless perhaps we can revert to somebody that we think that can relate to us, and then with the right questions, it's easier to open up. As with your question, what are we doing at Kindred? I mean, we don't have the gender specifics in our communication, as I said earlier, but it all comes down to giving the players the choice to communicate and normalizing it, and going there as early as it should be from the registration. Like, this is what we do. This is important to us. With us, you can expect that we might contact you, we encourage you, we will send you emails and so on, and giving the platform for whether it's a male or female to speak up or take the correct action.
Perfect. I mean, we talk a lot about, and we hear and we read an awful lot about everything in this industry is an abbreviation or an acronym, isn't it? And KYC, which is, for those on the call who aren't aware, is Know Your Customer. It's ordinarily used as in a commercial element when you hear about KYC. Most people think about that in the idea of keeping up marketing or promoting to a customer in a certain way. KYC is a hugely important part of what we all do in our jobs on here. We all know that. And those two examples that both of you have given is the work that we see in every collaboration that we do, that it's you use the correct person at the correct time to hopefully get the correct outcome on it. It leads us perfectly into speaking to Megan, who is the only one of us, I would suggest. I'm happy to be shot down if that's not the case. Who certainly out of us four, I would think more than likely, probably on this call, who's actually had one of these interactions. She's the only one who works at Epic, which is a stat that always blows my mind, that we've now got 26 people living in recovery of gambling addiction, with hundreds of years of recovery between us. And how many numbers of time in jail, I'm not sure. It's probably not one to touch on, but a lot of lives harmed, a lot of time, not only just the guys we're talking about. And Megan's the first person who can actually give us a first-person account of an interaction. We don't obviously have the time, or we won't go into the actual minutiae of it all, but it definitely leads us, and is something we've spoken about at length with everyone we work with. Megan will be in Gibraltar in a week's time as part of a team who are going across to work with Sandra's guys. And the first thing that, rather than prefacing anything that Megan's going to share with us, we've already talked about it really, and it is stigma. We have to understand that, again, not just us who work in these areas, that it's a two-sided thing, stigma. We not only have it from a customer's point of view, but it's a tough job what these guys are doing. Looking at information about somebody before they've spoken to them, getting calls on the hop, essentially speaking to people like me and like Megan, who a lot of the time are lying to you. It tends to be a lot of people who aren't in a great headspace where this is happening. So there has to be collaboration from both sides. And if you don't mind, Megan, can you just briefly, sort of 2 or 3 minutes, I'm aware of that. We'd like to take any questions after this if we can, of how your interaction went and how you described your feeling of now that you've worked with the industry, how it must have been for the agent.
Of course. I mean, the interaction I had was it wasn't great. It was an interaction that should have happened maybe 6 months earlier. At this point I'm in full blown addiction, and no safer gambling tool is going to stop me. At this point I need treatment, and I need to be, like, taken off the accounts. And I can remember it being 4 o'clock in the morning, getting this email come through saying that we've restricted your account and we need to talk to you on the phone. And I was using really heavily, and I just remember pacing around my bathroom thinking, how can I manipulate my way out of this situation? What lies can I spin? And and the way the kind of phone call went, it was this sort of middle-aged guy on the phone. And I explained to him that I told him some truths. I told him that I was in a financial abuse relationship, which I was, that I was being abused, which I was, but that I was out of the situation and that everything was fine, which I wasn't. I was still in that situation, but I needed to try and think of something to say just to kind of make the guy think, oh, she's had a bad time, but she's all right now, so she must be fine. And the interaction was sort of like a tick box exercise. And in the end, 24 hours later, I had my account back, and, I was off for the races again. And when I look back at that interaction, with a sober head, with a belly full of recovery, and after seeing firsthand how much effort that the industry actually put into to trying to make this better, looking back at that interaction, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. That guy was probably on a night shift. My accounts come up and he's probably thought, oh my goodness, this poor young girl. I was 22 at the time. This poor young girl, like, just seeing my account, he probably thought, how can I best help her in this situation? He probably felt really stigmatized. And when I'm on the phone to him and I'm coming out with all of these really massive things like financial abuse and physical abuse, he's probably like a bit panicked. And he probably doesn't know how or what to say, or what sort of questions to ask. Maybe he didn't feel like he could ask that question. Let's park the gambling for a minute. You've just told me some really serious things here. Are you okay? Are you receiving support? Is there anything that we can do? Is there any services that you would like us to help you find? And that's what I love about working for Epic now. Is that genuinely after that phone call, I thought that the industry did not care about me. I thought the industry just cared about having my money. And when I started working for Epic, I was completely wrong. Completely wrong. Craig was on the first call, the first session that I'd done, and my face was like this the entire time, because I was just blew away by the amount of work that you guys do. And yeah, it is just incredible how far, that the progression that I've seen since I was a gambler to now, especially.
Lovely, thanks, Megan. Yeah, it's we don't do that to shock. It's not something to point a finger. I could see both Sandra and knowing how formidable both of you are, thinking I'm glad it was nobody on my team, and so am I, because it's and to be fair to the company, of course, we would never mention who it is. It's irrelevant. The interaction itself I've seen, and our team have seen from start to finish. That picture is being painted a little bit darker than it is. I think if you were to mark the call, or it wasn't a phone, the interaction, a lot of it was on email. The correct questions were answered, or rather were asked. The answers, I think the work that we all do, weren't really looked at close enough. It felt to me like, exactly as Megan's just described, that it was somebody who, it could have been their first day. It could have been the first time on a call. There's so many mitigating circumstances. However, we're very lucky to hear so many. Alan's listening on here, the number of star calls that he gives to companies we work for, the progression that's been made in such a short space of time. Of course, we need to go further. Of course, we need to do more. But there also has to be a level of acceptance that the customer interactions that you guys have tend to be the majority of the time with people who are lying to you, who are in a tricky spot. So it does need to be applauded that the work and the commitment and the enthusiasm, the empathy that is put into it from everyone we've worked with it almost feels like a form of therapy to us guys who are privileged to do it. Before we open it up, and I'd like to get a sort of final statement from each of you. Would anyone like to add anything or have any points from what you've just heard from Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I would say from Entain's point of view, I mean, we've developed the ARC, which is our Advanced Responsibility and Care program, and that's the AI that is basically working non-stop 24 hours a day on accounts, looking at those, making sure that we're mitigating risks, which is the early intervention, emails, pop-ups, etc. And also, obviously, on top of that, the manual reviews that we do. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, for any operator, the challenge is how to do it better. And that's our challenge on a daily basis, how we do it better, how we do calls better, how we do reviews better, how we catch problem gamblers better, how we help them. That's the thing. It's how we can give the help and how we actually challenge, because I think, you know, previously analysts, operators are frightened to challenge the customer on the answers that they're giving. They're frightened, but now we don't have that fear any longer. Now we own these conversations, and that's partially due to the help that we've had from Epic to show us what obviously a problem gambler is like, and what things that we can do and things to listen to, so that we can actually identify these problems as we go along in the conversations. So I think, yes, our challenge is to do it better, to do more big tech things like ARC and bring things into the gaming industry that will only help us, because at the end of the day, the gaming industry is all about entertainment, enjoyment, and we have a small portion of people who do have a problem, and we just want to make sure that we look after those people while making sure that the companies are doing the best they can really at the same time.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you for that, Sandra. Yeah, Tiana?
I just wanted to add in here that these lived experience stories, such as Megan, and that the things that the collaboration what we've done with Epic in general, I think that they have been fundamental in not only establishing the right RT mindset for anybody who works with us, but the learnings that we take. We have a long history working with such lived experiences, but not so many with women. And just yesterday, we had a session with Megan, much appreciated. And having been there many times myself, there's always good questions, and those questions are really meaningful. Like, for example, what would have been the crucial point that an operator could have prevented it, or what could have we done better as an industry, and so on. And these are very important questions. So these lived experiences, this real raw information, honest conversation, then together with academic research, and then to apply the technology together with all it combined, I think that are crucial components going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And Megan, is there? I know I'm conscious on time. Amazingly, we're almost good for time. If anyone wants to put anything in the chat, feel free to, or email any of us afterwards with any comments or any questions that they'd like us to address. I'd be delighted to. This recording will be going on our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to the Epic Global Solutions YouTube. We've got lots of other content on there, and happy to address any questions or comments on there. 6 months, Megan, nearly 6 months, and I feel like I've known you all my life. Is there anything that you would, as briefly as we can, because we'll carry on talking till the rest of the day if we could, is there anything that in your time has hugely surprised you, or more importantly, I suppose, because we know how positive you are, what could we do? And that means Epic, that means Kindred, it means Entain, it means anybody else we work with, it means people we don't work with who are on this call. We've all got a place to do this. What can we do to mitigate the chance of the next Megan having that interaction incorrectly?
Wow. So I'll answer the first point first. I think I'll just echo what I said before. That was probably the biggest shock for me, was coming on my first call and my first training session with you, Craig, and just listening and hearing, and how much that you guys care, and how much you guys want to make a difference and you want to help, and and it completely, you know, it blew me away. And I think more people need to know about this, like know how much you guys care, because, you know, I feel like the industry does have a negative spotlight put on it at majority of the time, you know. And I think, you know, the stuff that you do, like I see it now, and it just completely it completely blows me away. And the one thing, to answer your second point, the one thing that I think that everyone could be done, and it has been mentioned, is that kind of early intervention. You know, when I first was gambling, probably before I was addicted, maybe I was a regular heavy gambler, you know, the safer gambling tools would pop up as a little advertisement, and I just used to think that they were just for the addicts. You know, I didn't really know any different. I just thought, I don't need them because I'm not an addict, you know, I'm in control. So maybe like an earlier intervention, when someone's playing regularly, just to kind of have a conversation with them about enhancing their experiences by saying, listen, you know, we've got these amazing tools here. Not only can they protect you, but they can also enhance your experience and enhance your play and stuff like that. I definitely think that if that had happened to me, I don't travel on a time machine or anything like that, but just maybe I would be in a different position today.
Yeah, I agree. I echo that point, and I think we all do, you know, in all the work that we've done. It can't be done overnight, but there's been enormous strides made in again, 3 years today. It feels like 33 years at times, but at other times it feels like 3 days. I'm privileged to work in this area and with everybody on this call. You know, I know Safer Gambling Week's a busy week, so thanks everybody for, first of all, you guys giving us your time today. Very important for everyone who's joined us on this. And it's Safer Gambling Week is really important. It does raise the profile hugely. It does, if I'm honest, at times feel a bit overkill, I think, everywhere you go. And both Taina, Sandra, Megan, and all of our team and everyone we work with, Safer Gambling Weeks every day. You know, this is the sort of thing that these teams are doing at times 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it does need to be you know, applauded also. I'll address the quick question that's come in. Curious if Megan would have preferred great question. So would you have preferred a man or a woman, a man on the phone, being a younger woman, and also respect for sharing a story from Nikki Lee Snodgrass. So again, you say we don't live in a time machine. I wish I did. It would leave us longer in this game. But do you think, let me change it slightly. Do you think you would have had a different outcome if it had been a woman who had phoned you rather than a man?
So my stance on this, and do you know what, as we had this conversation earlier when Sandra was speaking about it, I sort of started playing the scenario out of my head, which is really weird, I know. But if I would have had that earlier intervention as a regular gambler, just enjoying the experience, I would have not have been phased whether if it was a man or a woman. But at that crucial point in my life, you know, I was going through torturous abuse, you know, and I was in a lot of pain. And if I had had a woman, whether it be an older woman or even just a younger woman who I could relate to on a level, I don't know, maybe things would have been different, you know. Maybe I would have hung up the phone and run away. Who knows? But I think it just opens up, like Sandra said, that kind of that comfort, that homely feeling, you know, that you just get woman to woman connection. Can
I ask you in a different way, Megan? Not like me to be slightly controversial. So first of all, I think the message that you're saying is one that all of us have said, that it was treatment you were looking for then. So, I mean, it didn't really matter who it was you spoke to. It needed to have been done a little bit earlier on in the journey. The way you described it, and please tell me off, as you regularly do, if it's not the way that you're saying it, but it almost felt like, do you think it would have been more difficult to lie to a woman than it would have been at a man at that time that you were in?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and probably a lot of women can relate to this, but we have this sort of sixth sense. And this, I don't know, women just have this sort of sixth sense, and I think I'd struggle to manipulate a woman, whereas a man I'd find, because he's a different gender, because, you know, he might feel uncomfortable in the situation, I could very much easily manipulate him.
I understand that that isn't breaking news that women are good at manipulating men, to be fair. But it's I get that. That's wonderful. So I know we're stuck for time. Thank you for all of the contributions in the questions. A colleague of ours, Alan, saying that I think this is important to address, that there certainly is a lot of people within this industry, within the press, within the wider audience who don't even know that your teams exist. It's something, you know, that we always sort of speak about, is that we do believe it needs to be applauded and spoken about more. The collaboration that we and everyone else in this safer gambling space, Epic aren't the only one here. We do a lot of good work, and we work very hard at this to try and make people like me, like Megan, like Alan, like every other lived experience person working in this space, you know, it's vitally important, and it doesn't go unnoticed from our side. We all know that. So that's 3 minutes over. Isn't too bad for me, I don't think. Any final thoughts from anybody? All good. So
just a massive thank you for taking us on here, Craig. I mean, it's really important for us that we get to speak about our teams and showcase the hard work that our teams put into protecting our customers. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, agreed. Taina?
Thank you. Indeed, it's always a pleasure. It's something more than, you know, working behind the desk, to actually to talk to the other side and to be, you know, sharing these things and stories. It is important. Thank you.
Yeah, well, from Epic, from everybody, we've got the same. We've got an enormous backroom staff that allows us to go and sort of stand at the front, if you like, and get the plaudits for it all. It's great work. Let's keep doing it. Look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
Guys.